Hi everyone, it's Chrissy here with my very first experience with embossing paste. I thought it would be fun to use an image from Sweet Stamp Shop's Elegant Flowers set to make a stencil. To start, I use an image that I stamped, scanned, and saved as a JPEG. With that image opened in Silhouette Studio, I can start creating my stencil. First things first, I have to turn this image into a cut file using the trace function. Simply select the print area, make sure to capture the entire image, choose Trace Outer Edges, and then you'll see a red line around the image. This is your cut line. Delete the solid image, and now we can work with our cut file. I'm going to create a rectangle that is larger than a card front, and this is going to be our stencil shape. I sized it to 6 inches by 4 3/4 inches to make sure that it's going to extend past the edges of the card. Next, I'm going to replicate my beautiful flower image by using Rotate 5 copies that you can find in the Replicate menu. This will leave me with 6 total images that I can move and resize around my stencil. I wanted them to be different sizes to make for a more interesting and random background. Once I have them sized and spaced how I want them, I'm going to group the images because I'm going to cut 3 of these stencils to layer together for a more sturdy and thick stencil. With them all grouped, I can replicate it 3 times and place them in the cut area, which in this case is a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. Once I have them all placed on the 12 by 12 area, then I'm going to cut this file, and I'll be back in a second to show you how to turn these cuts into a stencil and eventually a card. Alright, so now we've cut our 3 pieces, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to use 2 or 3, but I'm going to use these cuts to make a stencil. So we're going to take my little Xyron and I'll run it through. I'll start with 1 and just see how thick that is and if I think that's thick enough for me. Alright, so there we have our stencil, and I'm thinking that the 2 is probably pretty good. I'm going to just make sure there's no adhesive sticking through anywhere. There's a couple little spots. Alright, now let's try out our stencil. Alright, so now we have our cardstock base, and we'll put our stencil down. And then I am going to use some Post-its to hold that in place. Alright, so now we're going to take our embossing paste. It's the metallic silver. And I'm going to use a scrap piece of cardstock. And just kind of go over it all. Pick up the excess, put it back in the bottle, make sure I got all of the holes. It looks like it. And I'm going to start removing my Post-it notes. Okay, and then we'll lift up our makeshift stencil and remove it from our card. There we have our shapes in the embossing paste. There we go. Kind of clean it up just a little. And I'm going to set that to the side to dry. And we'll be back when it dries. All right, it's time to assemble our card. So once it dries, here's what the card looks like. Isn't it beautiful with the embossing paste? I love the silver on silver. All right, next I die cut a thanks and ran it through my Xyron so that it would be sticky. That's going to represent my line on this from the sketch. I'm going to use Memento Luxe Lilac Posies to stamp my image on to my little flower cutout to put on the card. So we'll start with that since it needs to dry a little bit. I'm going to let that dry over to the side. We'll take the one I already had dry. We'll take off our thanks. And adhere this to the card front. I'm going to kind of have that, the S's little swoop-de-doo thing.
Mommy!
Yes, Micah?
What is this I made? What is this I made?
It looks like a lovely tower, little dude. Alright, so now we're going to take our flower and we're going to pop it up with some pop dot or some foam squares. And then I think we need a little more sparkle. And I just kind of play around with the placement of this. There we go. A little bling. So, here's my card. You can see the neat dimension and a little bit of shimmer. And I hope you enjoyed it.